Okay, so you want to buy a Formula One team, find some engineers, hire a couple of drivers, watch the trophies roll in. But here's the strange part. Formula One is the only sport on Earth where you can spend $500 million just to show up. And somehow, after all that, the business of actually racing the cars is the least important part of the money. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how much it costs to get a seat at the most exclusive table in global sport, how Formula One teams actually make their money, why the richest operators in the paddock still find ways to go broke, and why owning a Formula One team has almost nothing to do with motorsport. Formula One teams come in 3 tiers, and they are 3 completely different financial animals. The floor is buying an existing midfield team. Williams sold a majority stake in 2020 for around $200 million. Sauber, now rebranded as Audi's works team, was acquired for a figure in that same range. You get the infrastructure, the factory, the grid slot, the staff. You are buying a going concern. Expensive, but the fastest way in. The middle tier is what Lawrence Stroll did with Aston Martin. He bought the Racing Point team in 2018 for roughly $90 million, then spent the next 6 years pouring hundreds of millions more into it, building an entirely new $200 million factory at Silverstone, bringing in engineering legend Adrian Newey from Red Bull, and turning a midfield also ran into a team now valued at over $3 billion. Stroll did not buy a racing team. He bought a platform, and then built the most expensive version of it he could think of. And then there is starting from scratch. Cadillac just paid $450 million. That is just the entry fee, split among the existing 10 teams as compensation, before spending a single dollar on a factory, a car, or a driver. That $450 million is called the anti-dilution fee. It exists because every new team on the grid takes a slice of the prize money pool, and the teams already there want paying for it. General Motors wrote that check in 2025 just for the right to be on the grid in 2026. The car itself is extra. Other teams had pushed for that fee to be $600 million. Formula One's version of a welcome gift is a bill that most countries could not afford. So the real cost of entry? Somewhere between $200 million to buy a struggling team and $1 billion plus to build one properly from the ground up. Once you're in, where does the revenue actually come from? 2 buckets: sponsorship and prize money. That's it. Everything else, merchandising and licensing, is a rounding error by comparison. The prize money is distributed by Formula One itself through something called the Concord Agreement, the commercial contract that governs the whole sport. In 2024, Formula One distributed $1.27 billion among the 10 teams. The split is not equal. It is based on where you finish in the Constructors' Championship, how long you have been in the sport, and whether you have won titles recently. McLaren, who won the 2024 Constructors' Championship, received around $161 million. Last place Sauber received $57.9 million. Ferrari gets a separate historical bonus on top of everything else, worth tens of millions annually, simply for having been there since the beginning in 1950. Nobody else has that clause. It is, quite literally, written into the rules that Ferrari gets paid more than everyone else just for existing. Sponsorship is the other engine. Title sponsors set the market ceiling. MasterCard signed with McLaren in 2025 for a reported $100 million per season, the largest confirmed title sponsorship on the current grid. Oracle pays Red Bull in a similar range. Most teams have 20 to 30 partners, with deal values ranging from $1 million for a logo on a wing mirror to $70 million for naming rights on the nose. In 2024, F1 teams collectively generated over $2 billion in sponsorship revenue across the grid. American brands have flooded in since the Netflix effect took hold. Goldman Sachs, Google, Dell, AT&T, ExxonMobil. Companies that would not have touched a racing team a decade ago are now fighting for space on the side pod. Put it together, and the top teams are generating serious money. Mercedes posted $812 million in revenue in 2024. Ferrari was just behind at around $700 million. Williams, at the other end, brought in $158 million. Same sport, same 24 races, 5 times the revenue gap. Here's the rule that transformed the economics of this entire industry. Before 2021, Formula One had no spending limits. The big three, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull, were spending $400 million to $500 million a year. Williams was spending $150 million a year. The result was entirely predictable. Between 2010 and 2020, only 3 teams won a Constructors' Championship. It was less a sport and more a very expensive proof of concept that money wins. Then in 2021, Formula One introduced the cost cap. Teams were limited to $145 million in core racing spend per year. Driver salaries, travel, and marketing were excluded, which is why Max Verstappen's reported $60 million annual salary does not count against it, but everything touching the actual car design, development, and operation had a hard ceiling. The effect was immediate. Smaller teams suddenly had a realistic path to competitiveness. McLaren, who finished 4th in the Constructors' Championship in 2023, won it outright in 2024. A team that hadn't won a title since 1998 did it because the cost cap stopped the big three from simply burying them in engineering spend. The cap also did something nobody fully predicted. It made almost every team profitable. Before the cap, 80% of the grid was losing money. After it, 70% turned a profit. Williams had posted losses for 5 consecutive years, totaling over $285 million. The cost cap did not save Williams overnight, but it stopped the bleeding. When every team is forced to operate within the same spending envelope, suddenly the business of running an F1 team starts to resemble an actual business. For 2026, the cap increases to $215 million to account for the new engine regulations. The relative discipline stays. The spending arms race is, officially at least, over. There is one cost the cap cannot touch, and it is the most complicated line item on the entire budget: the drivers. At the top of the market, 2 men set the price for everyone else. Max Verstappen reportedly earns $60 million a year at Red Bull, making him one of the highest paid athletes in any sport on Earth. Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari in 2025 was reported at a similar figure. Some estimates put the total package higher. These contracts are excluded from the cost cap, which means a team can spend $215 million on the car, and then spend another $60 million on one driver without breaching any rules. For the top teams, this is manageable. They have the sponsorship revenue to absorb it. For everyone else, the driver market is a trap. The sport has a concept called the pay driver, a racer who brings sponsorship money with them as part of their contract. At the back of the grid, this is sometimes the only way to make the budget work. A driver who brings $10 to $20 million in backing can be more financially valuable to a struggling team than a faster driver who does not. The sport has always quietly known this. It just does not like talking about it. The cleanest example is what happened to Haas in 2022. They signed Nikita Mazepin, son of a Russian billionaire, reportedly in part because of the financial backing the relationship brought. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Haas terminated the contract immediately and lost the backing overnight. The team spent the rest of the season with a car they could not fully develop because the budget assumptions had collapsed under them. The driver is simultaneously your most powerful marketing asset and your most dangerous financial variable. Here's the part most people miss. A Formula One team's value has almost nothing to do with whether it wins races. It has everything to do with what the grid slot itself is worth. Think about it this way. There are exactly 10 seats at the Formula One table. That's it. There is no second division to get promoted from. There is no expansion draft. You either own one of those 10 slots or you don't exist in this sport. And the value of simply holding a slot, regardless of lap times, has increased 89% in 2 years. The average Formula One team is now worth $3.6 billion. Every single team on the grid, including the backmarker that has not scored a podium in years, is worth over $1.5 billion. This is why Red Bull bought Jaguar Racing in 2004 for £1. Not because Jaguar was a good team, it was terrible. But it came with a grid slot. That £1 investment is now worth $3.5 billion. The grid slot is the asset. The racing is the content that keeps the asset valuable. And the content has never been more valuable. Netflix's Drive to Survive, which launched in 2019, transformed Formula One from a European motorsport niche into a global entertainment product. American audiences tripled, sponsorship rates doubled. Formula One's own revenue went from $1.8 billion in the mid-2010s to $3.65 billion in 2024. The teams didn't just get better at racing, they got discovered. So with all this money sloshing around, how does anyone lose? Two patterns, over and over. The first is turning up underfunded. In 2010, Formula One opened the grid to new entrants for the first time in years. 3 teams accepted the invitation: HRT from Spain, Virgin Racing from the UK, and Lotus from Malaysia. All 3 were promised a budget cap of €50 million that would make the economics work. The FIA never imposed it. HRT lasted 3 seasons, never scored a single point, and went bankrupt at the end of 2012 when they could not find a buyer. Virgin Racing, rebranded as Marussia, made genuine progress, and in 2014 scored the team's first ever championship points at the Monaco Grand Prix, the highest paying race on the calendar. It should have been their financial lifeline. Then Jules Bianchi was critically injured in Japan that same year, and the sponsorship dried up overnight. Marussia went into administration 4 days after Caterham did the same. 200 staff were made redundant. The points money they had earned, enough to change the trajectory of the team, was never collected. Both teams had entered a sport that cost $150 million a year to operate, with budgets closer to $60 million. The math was never going to work. The second failure pattern is spending the money on the wrong things. Caterham, formerly Team Lotus, is the most painful example. Tony Fernandes, the founder of AirAsia, bought the team in 2010 with genuine ambition. He hired experienced drivers, built proper infrastructure, and spent years fighting at the back of the grid. By 2014, the team was hemorrhaging money with no realistic path to prize money that mattered. In a last-ditch attempt to make it to the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi and collect whatever scraps of prize money they could, Caterham launched a crowdfunding campaign. Racing fans donated £2.4 million to keep a Formula One team alive for one more weekend. It worked. They showed up in Abu Dhabi. Then they folded anyway. The lesson is not that Caterham was run by idiots. It is that Formula One has a structural trap baked into its prize money system. The difference in payout between finishing 9th and 10th in the Constructors' Championship is worth tens of millions of dollars. Finishing 10th and 11th is the difference between surviving and going under, and the teams above you are spending 3 times what you are to make sure you never catch them. Step back and look at the actual numbers. Scenario 1. You buy a midfield team for $200 million. You operate under the cost cap, $140 million in 2024 for the core racing budget, plus driver salaries, travel, and marketing on top. Total annual outlay is somewhere between $250 million and $350 million. Prize money and sponsorship, if you are consistently finishing 7th or 8th, brings in around $150 million to $200 million. You are losing money every year on purpose. Why would anyone do that? Because your $200 million investment is now worth $1.5 billion to $2 billion. You are not running a profitable business. You are holding the most exclusive piece of real estate in sport and watching it appreciate. Scenario 2. You are Ferrari. You spend over $400 million a year. You bring in $700 million in revenue. You post around $73 million in net profit. Your team is worth $6.4 billion in 2025, the most valuable sports franchise in the world outside of the NFL. You have a title sponsorship from a petrochemical company, a historical bonus clause that no other team has, and a brand so embedded in the identity of this sport that Formula One once literally paid you extra just to stay. Net profit at Ferrari, $73 million on $700 million in revenue, a margin of around 10%. For context, a mid-sized supermarket chain does better. The money in Formula One is not in the profit margin, it is in the valuation. The 10 teams are now worth a combined $36 billion. That number has gone up 89% in 2 years. Nobody who owns a Formula One team is waiting for the dividend check. They are waiting for the moment they sell a minority stake to a sovereign wealth fund at a valuation that makes everyone in the room blink twice. Toto Wolff just did exactly that. He sold a slice of Mercedes at a $6 billion valuation. He did not build a racing team, he built a financial instrument that happens to travel at 200 miles per hour. So if you do decide to buy a Formula One team, just remember the most important rule of this business. The race does not matter, the grid slot does. Just make sure you are on it.